All right, welcome to the Detroit Lions News Podcast on Jason Sports YouTube page. I'm your host, Joe Chapp, and obviously, there's a lot to break down with the Detroit Lions. And we're going to go position by position and break down what their strengths, what their weaknesses are. Last year I did a version of it on the podcast, but I want to do it for the YouTube community. And then I'll put it in a podcast for people to download and re-listen to it before the season starts, because obviously we started an early training camp this year. Um, so if you're new to the channel, if you're new to the podcast, Detroit Lions News Podcast, you can find it anywhere. You'll find it here on Just Sports YouTube page. But here's the thing. We're going to break down the QBs today. And when we talk about breaking down the QB room, we talk about breaking down what the QB room is in conjunction, right? We know Jared Goff is a prohibited starter. There's no doubt about it. Jared Goff will start the season with the Detroit Lions as a starter. A lot of other teams in the NFL, they're worried about who's going to be the starting quarterback, who's going to be the back, who's going to push for the starting job. Like if you're in Indianapolis, you have a guy like Anthony Richardson who could potentially lose his job to Daniel Jones. You have a guy like Russell Wilson in New York that could potentially lose his job to Jameis Winston, as sad as it is to say. And, unfortunately for a Detroit Lions opponent, they got a good quarterback in free agency, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers, who the Detroit Lions will face this year. But when you're breaking down the QB room, this is this is a position that I think a lot of people, they overlook. And I heard today, you hear so many stupid things on the radio. But I heard, like, if you lose Jared Goff, your season's done. If you lose Jared Goff for an extended period of time, yes, your season is done. There's no doubt about it. But if you lose Jared Goff for 4 games, can you manage it? Can you, get by with the quarterbacks that you have? That's the premise of why we're doing this breakdown. If you lose a guy in the running back room, can you get by with Craig Reynolds or Sion Vaki? If you lose a guy in the wide receiver room, can you get by? Today we're breaking down the quarterback room. And when you break down the quarterback room, it's interesting because I feel like there's a quarterback that's on the Lions roster that has a lot to prove this season, and it's not Jared Goff. And you got 4 preseason games to prove it. And I still think this is the most murky part of the Detroit Lions, because if Jared Goff was to go down at any point this season and he misses 4 games, he misses 3 games, can you expect your backup quarterback to win you 2, to win you 1, to win you maybe they win you 3 out of 4? That's why we're doing this exercise. So when you look at how this is broke down, the backup quarterback is going to get the backup 1 and backup 2 are going to get 1 out of 5 scores. Okay. If I was doing this in Washington, D.C., Marcus Mariota would get a 5. He's an experienced guy. He started in the league. Kirk Cousins, the backup quarterback in Atlanta, he would get a 5. But here in Detroit, we have a totally different situation. So let's get to the quarterbacks. So obviously, we will get to Hooker and Allen. Obviously, Kyle Allen is the backup. He comes from Pittsburgh last year. He played in 1 game. He had 1 for 100. He completed the pass, 19 yards. His quarterback rating was 118.7. I scored him a 1 out of 5. And the reason I scored him a 1 out of 5, it might seem a little bit just tough to score this guy, but he hasn't started a game in 3 years. So I'm kind of leery of that because he hasn't played, he hasn't started, but when he has started, I believe there was 1 year with Pittsburgh like a long time ago in 2019 where he was 7-9 or something like that. So that's a good one. Now Hendon Hooker last year, 3 games played, no starts, obviously. He had 6 completions, 9 attempts. I don't even understand how he got that, but that is what it is. 62 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, passer rating 86.3. I also gave him a 1 out of 5. And people are going to be like, why did you give Hendon Hooker a 1 out of 5? Why did you give Hendon Hooker a 1 out of 5? It's simple. Hendon Hooker has a lot to show me to be the backup quarterback. And I'm honestly perplexed why, Brett Holmes says let this be a very, very deficient position. You know, in years past, you can go get Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater was on the roster, and you could feel comfortable that if he had to come in and he was asked to play and start 4 games, you feel like he could win you 2 games, right? I feel like none of these quarterbacks, the backup quarterbacks, can win us 2 games out of 4. And look, I love Hendon Hooker. I watched him at Tennessee. I'm a Tennessee Volunteer fan, and when I watched Hendon Hooker at Tennessee, he was great with the long passes. He was in a one-read system. Josh Heupel's offense is super, super simple, and even a quarterback like Joe Milton can run that. And Joe Milton was an absolute bad quarterback at Michigan, and he turned it around at Tennessee, and he actually did pretty decent. Now he's going to be a backup quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, which is very interesting for the Cowboys' perspective. But I like Hendon Hooker a lot. I think Hendon Hooker has a very, very good shot to be a good backup. But here's what Mark Brunell said about Hendon Hooker. He says, nothing is given to you in this league, and you've got to earn it, Brunell said. And once again, Hendon finds himself in a position where he's going to have to earn that second spot. And it starts now. And obviously in preseason, it's preseason, but it's our OTAs. It's anytime we're on the field. It's all of that. And he's off to a very good start, which is good. He's getting better. Now, he's going in his 3rd year. The first year was totally a misnomer. We knew that was going to be a year where he was going to have to, figure things out. He was coming back off an injury. So we knew he wasn't going to be, ready in year 1. Year 2 comes by. He looked pretty decent in some of the preseason games, but we haven't seen him enough to say, yes, he is a prohibited backup quarterback for the Detroit Lions. And this is where it gets murky because you're going into a season where your schedule is tough as balls. This is a tough schedule. I don't know where you can expect, a guy like Hendon Hooker or Kyle Allen to come in here and win 2 out of 4. You're really resting on your talent of your team pulling you forward. But, in years past, if you said Teddy Bridgewater was going to start the Giants game and the Green Bay game, I'd be like, okay, we might win that game. We might win, we might win 2 out of, if you said weeks 12 through 15, you're going to lose Jared Goff. I feel like Teddy Bridgewater would have got us 2 wins, maybe against Dallas Cowboys, maybe against the New York Giants, whatever the case may be. This time around, you don't have Teddy Bridgewater. You have Hendon Hooker and Kyle Allen. And I scored him a 1 out of 5 because I don't think they're that good. I think Hendon Hooker can be good. He has the potential to be really, really good as a backup quarterback. I never viewed him as a starter or anything like that. Especially watching him at Tennessee, I never viewed him as a starter. And I kind of thought it was a waste of a pick, to be honest, because when I watched him at Tennessee, great deep ball, and he threw some great passes over the middle. But where he struggled the most was short passes and medium passes to the out of bounds line, to the numbers. That's what he struggled at. Cedric Tillman, Jalen Hyatt were so good for him because one was a speedy guy and one was a size guy, and he had a good thing there. With Detroit's offense, St. Brown he's not a sizable guy, but he's got route efficiency, so you can expect the route to be there. And he's kind of a short to medium guy. So if you can get the ball to him in a short to medium route, good. But Hendon Hooker is not that guy that could really throw, at least what he was at Tennessee. But we got to see what he does in the preseason. And this is where this is going to really hunker down to if the Detroit Lions have the backup quarterback that they are hoping for. You know what I'm saying? If they have to rely on Kyle Allen as a backup quarterback, oh boy, hopefully Jared Goff does not twist an ankle or nothing like that, because we always say if Jared Goff misses time, you're going to have a hard time to win football games. But look at what the best teams in the NFL do. Look at the Jaden Daniels, right? If he gets hurt, who's backing him up? Marcus Mariota. If Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City gets hurt, who's backing him up? Gardner Minshew. Who's backing Brock Purdy up in San Francisco? If he gets hurt, Mac Jones. That's good. Michael Penix gets hurt because he has had a propensity to get hurt. Kirk Cousins. If Matt Stafford gets hurt in LA, who is backing him up? Jimmy Garoppolo. Those are good backup quarterbacks for your team. Now, Detroit does not have the luxury for a backup quarterback like that. For whatever reasons, they have never really put an emphasis on the backup quarterback position, like going to get a Mac Jones, going to get a Jimmy Garoppolo, going to get a guy like Gardner Minshew, whatever the case may be. They don't have that guy right now. They're hoping on potential and a veteran. And the veteran hasn't started a game in 3 or 4 years. The rookie, the younger player, not the rookie, the younger player, Hooker, he's going in his third year, has never started a game in the NFL, and he's going to be asked to study the team. We're going to have to see what happens in the preseason and training camp. Because the way I look at it, this is a guy who, if everything breaks down right, Hooker, Allen, who wins the job is the best guy for the job. That will be the question. But at this point in time, I have a major question about the Lions quarterback room. Because when I look at Jared Goff, he's a 12 out of 12. 17 starts, 17 games, completion percentage 72.4, 390 for 539, for 4,600 yards. That was second in the league. Fourth in touchdowns at 37. Interceptions 12. Passer rating 111.8. I scored him a 12 out of 12 because he's a great quarterback. In the system that he's in with the players that he has, he's a good-ass quarterback that you could really rely on. But again, this breakdown isn't about one player. It isn't about, the whole one player is weighted more than the others. It's the room. And when I look at this room, this is how it breaks down. Goff, 12. 12 out of 12. That's great. Hooker and Allen, I give them 1. A total score of 14. Now, when I did this in conjunction with the whole NFL, the Lions were, I think, like 13th or 14th. Because a lot of teams have some good backup quarterbacks that pump up their score. They have good developmental quarterbacks. Their third-string quarterbacks are either a developmental guy or a guy that's been in the league for a while. And I just don't feel comfortable with this Detroit Lions backup quarterbacks. I don't feel comfortable with a guy like Kyle Allen being a potential guy that you would be like, yes, that guy I trust to win a game with the Detroit Lions. So we'll see, because this is in my opinion, this backup quarterback is the biggest thing that is not on the Detroit Lions radar. A fan of the Detroit Lions, it's not on their radar. And we'll see what happens in preseason and what happens in training camp, because I got to tell you, Hendon Hooker is a very, very key part to the season, because we hope that we don't need to use Hendon Hooker. But if you own a home, if you own a car, you never hope that you have to use car insurance or homeowners insurance. But sometimes you have to. And sometimes it's a good thing to have a reassurance that if something does go wrong, you got the backup, you got the insurance to help you out if things go haywire. And right now, the Lions are, they have a garbage ass insurance that they're trying to use, and we'll see what it amounts to. But last year, the injuries mounted on the defense, and that was an onslaught of injuries that was happening on the defense, and they put together enough to win 15 games, but it didn't matter when it came to the postseason. So you never hope that you lose a guy like Jared Goff for the year. But this, the percentages are you're going to lose a quarterback for a couple games. I mean, it's happened throughout the NFL. So we hope that we don't have that issue here in Detroit. But with the retirement of Frank Reich now, it's definitely an issue. It's definitely an issue. So we'll see what happens in training camp. We'll see what happens in the preseason. The Lions have 4 preseason games to get this situated. But at this point in time, I don't feel comfortable in the backup quarterback position. I feel comfortable about QB1, but QB2 and QB3, I have no confidence in right now. We'll see if that changes. But we'll move on to the running back room tomorrow. We'll move on to the wide receiver room on Thursday. I mean, yeah, we'll figure it out. But every day this week we will be breaking down the room, going QB, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line, and then next week we'll do defensive line, linebacker, safety, and cornerback. So we'll see you in the next video as we talk more Detroit Lions football here on JC Sports.